All right, so today we're diving into the world of probation officers. And honestly, I was surprised by how much more there is to it than meets the eye. We're really going to dig into this one using the RoleCatcher Career Library.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think, get their impressions from like TV and
Oh, no,
movies
totally.
where it's all about catching them doing something wrong.
Right.
But the reality is so much more than that.
So then what makes it more complex than what we see on screen?
Well, it's really about rehabilitation.
Okay.
Like, imagine working with someone who's just been released from prison and they maybe need help finding a place to live or a job or just even like relearning how to navigate everyday life.
So it's kind of like the helping hand to guide them back into society.
Exactly, you got it. The goal is to help them become productive members of society again. It's a balance,
Yeah.
providing supervision, but also supporting their rehabilitation. It's not about punishment. It's about creating a path for them to move forward.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
And that must take a certain type of person.
totally.
Someone who can be firm, but understanding at the same time.
Absolutely. And this role catcher guide actually highlights that. When it talks about the skills needed, they say social perceptiveness is key.
Social perceptiveness.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in this context?
It's more than just being observant, right? It's about understanding people's motivations, seeing beyond just what's on the surface. Like, you might be working with someone who says all the right things,
Right.
but can you tell if they're truly remorseful or if they're just trying to appease you?
It's like you're reading between the lines with every interaction.
Exactly. And that's where emotional intelligence becomes really important. You need that to work with the individual, but also to navigate all the complexities of the justice system itself.
So it's not just about being tough, like we might think.
No, not at all.
You need empathy and perceptiveness to really do well in this role. What other qualities are important for being a good probation officer?
And it's not even just about the person they're working with either.
Oh, you mean there's even more to it?
Yeah, the justice system itself can be really complicated.
Right.
And probation officers often have to advocate for their clients within that system.
That makes sense. They're like the bridge between the individual and all the legal stuff.
Exactly. They might need to help their client get access to resources or understand legal proceedings or even just connect them with other support services.
So it's a big responsibility then.
For sure.
It requires a deep understanding of how everything works.
Yeah, and speaking of systems, this role catcher guide also has this really interesting section on career progression for probation officers.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering about that. You don't necessarily need like a doctorate to become one, right?
You're right.
Okay.
There are entry-level positions available,
Okay.
but the guide does mention that further education can open doors to different specializations.
Like what? What kind of specializations?
Well, they gave an example of a senior probation officer who had a PhD in criminology.
Wow.
And they also had additional certifications in risk assessment.
Certifications in risk assessment. That sounds really specialized.
It is, and it shows how the role can change over time. You might start out working directly with people, doing home visits and building those relationships.
The hands-on stuff?
Exactly. But as you get more experience and maybe get more education, you can move into a more strategic type of position.
Interesting.
Maybe shaping policies or influencing how the system works, or even doing research to improve those rehabilitation outcomes we were talking about earlier.
So there's a path for people who like the direct interaction,
Yeah.
but also for those who are more analytical.
Exactly. Caters to a lot of different interests and skills.
So you've got this clear career path, but then the field itself is also changing, right? This role catcher guide mentioned something about how technology is impacting things, especially with data analysis.
Right, and that's a really important point. Technology is becoming more and more important in this field.
Okay.
Probation officers are starting to use data to monitor people, assess risk levels, and even try to predict if someone's likely to reoffend.
That's kind of wild when you think about it.
It is.
Using algorithms to predict human behavior.
Yeah, it definitely raises some ethical questions. There's no doubt about it. And the guide actually touches upon that too.
Really?
Yeah, for example, they have this whole bit about an interview question. Can you describe your experience working with individuals with mental health issues?
That's interesting. They bring that up in the context of technology.
Exactly, because it shows how you can't just rely on data.
Yeah.
When you're working with someone who has mental health issues, technology can be a tool,
Right.
but it can never replace that human element, of building trust and providing guidance and understanding their specific situation.
So there's a balance between using the new tools, but also remembering the human side of it.
Exactly.
And that's a big theme throughout this whole profession, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
And, we haven't even talked about the job outlook yet.
Sure.
This isn't exactly a field that's like booming with job openings, is it? It's not like the hottest job market or anything.
Right, it's not the fastest growing field, but the guy did say there's still a need for good probation officers.
Why is that? If it's not growing quickly, what keeps the demand steady?
Well, I mean, the justice system is always changing, right? And as a society, we're still figuring out how to best support people who need a second chance. So that role of a probation officer is still really important.
They're like right there dealing with all these complicated social issues.
Exactly. They see firsthand how the justice system affects people's lives,
Yeah.
and they help those individuals through all those challenges.
This deep dive has been eye-opening for me. I have to say, I only had this like vague idea from TV shows before.
Yeah, it's definitely more than meets the eye.
Way more. It's not about monitoring ankle bracelets or making sure someone's following the rules. It's about changing lives, dealing with a complex system, asking these tough questions about technology and ethics, even advocating for people who might not have a voice otherwise.
You got it. It's tough, it's demanding, and it can be emotionally draining, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
You can make a real difference in someone's life.
For sure. And that actually brings us back to something we talked about earlier, that balance between someone's right to privacy and keeping the public safe.
Right. That's a tough one.
It is. There are no easy answers. That's something these professionals deal with all the time.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
Definitely. It's not just a job, you know? It
Yeah.
makes you think about human nature and how our society works and what second chances really mean.
That's a great way to put it. So for everyone listening, if this deep dive has got you thinking about a career as a probation officer, don't stop here. Do some more research, ask questions, figure out if it fits with what you believe in and what you want to achieve. It's a path that needs compassion, critical thinking, and a real dedication to making a difference both for individuals and for our communities. And with that, until next time, keep diving deep.